All right. Good evening. At least it's evening for me. Um, well, first, apologize I didn't get a fresh video up there last week, but we were going through the holidays. Everybody got a little busy, as I did as well. But we're going to try to get back on a video a week now. And uh, today we're going to start talking. I'd like to talk a little bit about thoughts. Those thoughts we hang on to or that we've learned and maybe need to change. So we started with the don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. That was the first video. Then we talked a little bit about the little boy and then healing some of those wounds was the next topic. And the last one was the feelings, the feeling diamond and how that kind of works in our life. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about the thoughts that we carry and that help create or distort our lives. And so we'll talk a little bit about the family roles and uh, how that kind of looks in the dysfunctional family. And again, I'm going to be giving my experience, what I've gone through. And again, this is not about beating up families or making parents wrong or using it as an excuse. None of that is correct. It's just that was my experience. I've got many great good things out of my family as well, but there was some dysfunction. Doesn't make it bad, just means it wasn't functioning right. So we're looking to live that more functional life, the one that works for us a little better. So we'll start with that. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about um, the one of those brilliant phrases in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That some of us tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, well, first we'll go back to the roles, and so I have an older brother, and he was born a year and a day before me, and the roles that we played. Well, he played the hero child. So we've heard these in the media: the hero child, the scapegoat, the mascot, the lost child. Those are some of the roles that we pick up, and they're not always just one. We can have a mixture of some or the other, and some of us might identify directly with just one role. And so I say my brother was born first, and for the most part, I would say he was the hero child. He did everything right. He didn't get into trouble. He got the good grades. And I took on a couple of the other roles, mostly the mascot, perhaps a little bit of that lost child as well. And so when you're born into a family and there's already a hero child, well, you can't carry that role. You have to pick up the others, and so I was that mascot, I guess, and getting into trouble and not playing right, and all of the roles, any role that we pick up, is all about taking the focus off of the real problem in the room. So the real problem was the alcohol that was, uh, you know, uh, dictating so much of my life, my family's life. The elephant in the room. We didn't want to talk about that. We didn't talk about it. So, we don't talk. And so we play these roles. And so if we can look at my brother and say, oh, look at here, child, look at everything he's doing so great. Well, okay, so now our focus is on him. Or we look at the mascot and look at him. He's in trouble again. And so we're not looking at the real problem. And so, but when you're playing these roles, and that's just what they are, it's playing a role as if you're in a play, and here's your script, and this is the one, but you aren't given a script. You learned it as you went along, but this was your role to play. You couldn't step out and say, well, I want to be him tonight. No, well, this is who you are, even though, like I said, we all go between roles at times. Some of us think, uh, sorry, a little off track there. So as that acting out child or the mascot, we'll call it, that role that I was playing, well, I better learn that role well and play it well because it's a requirement to be in this family to play that role. And so, some of the things that I heard, oh, look at your brother, he's doing well, and look at you, how come you ain't got good grades? How come you're in trouble? Those are the things that, this is who I am, right? I heard the phrase, shithead, I must be a shithead, these are the things you're hearing, and they're coming from that loving parent of yours that, he must know, And then the best example I can give of it is magazine highlights. I know many of us have seen it or heard of it, or I always remember being in the dentist office on the table, and you read highlights, but it was such a good kids magazine, and we got a prescription at home, a subscription at home that would come once a month, and you had highlights, and I dreaded when that magazine showed up because in it was a little cartoon, I guess you'd call it, of Goofus and Gallant, and that was in there. Everything, well, you can tell who Goofus and who Gallant is, right? And there would be little storyboard of two photo cartoons or drawings, let's call them. One with Gallant and how Gallant was bringing an apple to his teacher, and Goofus, who was eating the apple all by himself, and he didn't give anybody anything. And so the magazine would show up, and that would be one of the first things my father would do. Would open up to Goofus and Gallant and say, "Yeah, look at you there. There you are, Goofus, and there's your brother Gallant. There you are." Oh, okay. So I'm learning. My belief is now that I may be a shithead. I may be a Goofus. And well, if I am, that's my role. I'm going to play it to the best of my ability. And so I became the best Goofus that I knew how. And I thought that's who I was. But in my recovery, and as I started the healing process, I learned that that wasn't who I was. That was a role that I was required to play. And again, the only reason we play these roles is to take the focus off the alcoholic, because we're not going to talk about that. We're going to make sure that's the last thing we talk about, because it needs to run its terror through the family, or through our lives. And so when I came into recovery, I had, okay, so this isn't me, maybe I'm not Goofus, maybe I can be somebody else, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't really look at who I was for a long time. I held on to that role and kept playing it even after I was dry for a little while. It wasn't until I came in and started, do an inventory of my life and, seeing who I was. And so I had to start putting down some of those beliefs about myself. One of them was, so my brother got the straight A's, and I was a C, D student. You had to pass the class. You couldn't get away with failing it. That wouldn't have gone well. But you certainly didn't want to bring home no A's or B's, or you didn't think you were capable of it because you were just a Goofus, and your brother was bringing home all the A's. So you can't have two hero childs. But I decided at some point that, hey, well, maybe that wasn't me. Maybe I wasn't stupid. Maybe I did measure up. Maybe I wasn't that, I don't give enough effort. Or if I would just try a little harder, I'd get better grades. Maybe that wasn't me. And so I decided that perhaps I did, that I was intelligent, though I had some intelligence. And I went back to school later on in life at 47. I went back to college to get a bachelor's degree, and I followed that up with a master's degree and licensures in addictions and in mental health. So not to and here's the little boy in me wants you all to know that, I graduated both with a 3.8 grade point average. And that kind of told me, like, hey, maybe you're not a Goofus. Maybe you are intelligent. Maybe there are things you can do not what was told of you. Does this mean that everything from my past is a lie? No, there were some things that I got from my father that I thought were very valuable. So I looked at those, as this, and a couple of things my father was very diplomatic. He taught us to be diplomatic, to how to kind of like keep things at ease. And the other thing I got from my dad too is my love of baseball and coins and his generosity. So there was many good things I got from my dad, but there were also some poor messages that came through, messages that didn't work for me, and so I had to change them. And so, so how do we change them, right? Like I said, I decided I was going to be an intelligent man, and I went out and practiced being an intelligent man, going to school, taking tests, studying for them, what do intelligent people do? And so I did that. And so that, let's go back then to that line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous of some of us try to hold on to our old ideas, and the result is nil until we let go absolutely. So it's the old idea that creates the nil. So if I want to create abundance in my life, I need to have a new idea. And so here's one that we start with in recovery, I guess, and in the beginning of the healing process is that, I'm a sober man, right? That I have to change the old idea. Not, I'm just some drunk, no. I am a sober man, right? And then I have to follow it up with action, right? It's not just saying that affirmation, oh, I, Richard, am a sober man, and not following it up with action. And so what's the action? What do we do? Well, sober men don't drink, and maybe they go to meetings and they talk to their sponsor and they work the steps and, they help others. And so, so the new idea, which is creating abundance in my life, is I am a sober man. I act as a sober man and I become a sober man, And so it's a new idea now. So we got to plant those new ideas. And affirmations are great. Write down the affirmations, those things that you want to become, and repeat them every day to yourself. I, Richard, am a good man. I, Richard, am a kind man. I, Richard, am a caring man. I, Richard, am a sober man. I, Richard, am an intelligent man. Those are part of my affirmations list that I would remind myself every day that that's who I was. And then I went and practiced being that person, and if you don't know who are those people in your life that you admire, those people that you look up to, be like them, follow their lead, do what they're doing. That's how we change our lives. That's how we become abundant. We change the old thought and we change the old behaviors. I don't know if either one has to come first. I think we can change the behavior and then the thought will come, or we can change the thought and then the behavior will come. But for me, it was the old thought had to go away or had to change to the new thought. And so anyhow, I think that's it. I'm kind of rambling now. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me and allowing me to share some of my thoughts. All right. Have a good night.